Hi folks, Steve Nixon here at Logic FX Trading, and welcome to this building block series where we're learning Elliott wave theory as a prelude to the competent trader training and mentoring programs. Now, so far we've looked at the basic building blocks of corrective waves, at zigzags, flats, triangles and their variations. But now it's time to start putting a few of our pieces of our jigsaw together. Where a single corrective wave isn't enough to complete a corrective phase of price movement, we'll see the formation of a more complex structure. At first glance, these corrective structures look impossible to analyse, but when we start to break them down into their component parts, we see that they're actually made up of a series of the individual corrective waves that we've already talked about. So let's have a look at how simple corrective waves combine to form more complex structures. Now, Elliott called these double threes and triple threes, even though they can include triangles, which we know have at least 5 waves. We'll start by looking at the general structure using our generic model here. First of all, we have a double three which has 7 waves. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, that's not the label, that's just counting them, guys. And when we have a triple three, we have 11 waves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, there's a variation in this whenever we have a triangle because it will add 2 waves. So if we label this using Elliott's ABC, we have A, B, C. So that's our first 3-wave corrective structure. And then we have another wave in here, which Elliott called X because it joins one corrective structure to another, A, B, C. We have this corrective wave in the middle, or this connecting wave in the middle, should I say. So we had A, B, C, X, A, B, C. Now, since then, as we know, we've had a lot of other people have examined Elliott's theory, and they've added bits to it, and what Pretcher and Frost came up with was this. Instead of calling this ABC, X, ABC, they said, well, let's just call the first ABC W. We'll call her X, X, and we call her next one Y. And using that same terminology, where we have 11 waves, in other words, we've 3 structures connected to one another, we can have W, X, Y, X, Z. So where we have a triple three, we have 1, 2, 3 named W, Y and Z corrective structures linked by X there and X there. Elliott called these horizontal complex structures, or horizontal corrective structures. And the main reason for them is that where we need more time before price either moves on or moves down, we have a ranging structure. So this is a ranging structure where price ranges between there and there. And then when price is ready to move, we get our next impulse. Okay, so let's just look at these final 2 points before we move on to our next slide. Let's take that out of the way. Okay, number 7, alternation is common. So what does that mean? Well, alternation is a thing that we haven't discussed yet, and we will look at it in greater detail under Elliott's guidelines in a future video. But just let's have a look at it for now. What alternation means is that, generally speaking, if we have one type of corrective structure here, we'll have a different type of corrective structure here. So in other words, if this is a zigzag, chances are this will be a flat or a triangle. And if this is a flat, the chances are this will be a triangle or a zigzag. So in other words, we have alternating corrective structures. So we could have zigzag, flat, triangle. And we'll have a look at that later on. And the final point I want to make is about trend waves are 3s, counter trend waves are 3s or 5s. What do I mean by that? Well, a trend wave is a B or an X. Trend comes up, we get an A, counter trend. We get a B, trend, counter trend, trend, counter trend. Okay, so that's what we mean by that. So what's the importance of that? Well, if you have a situation where you have an A, a B, a C, if this isn't a three wave, this X, as we've labelled it here, remember we're talking about these in development, guys, where we don't know what's going to happen over here. What would happen if we got a 5-wave structure in there rather than a 3-wave structure? Well, that would tell us that our corrective structure is over. A 5-wave in here will give us an impulse, a new impulse. So it could be a 5, a correction, and then a 5. So it would be 1, 2, 3 of our new impulse. So in other words, this wave would start over here, where we have an A, B, C, and then it moves on. But where we get 3 waves in here, we've got a high probability that it's going to come back down again. But remember, it could also do a 4 and a 5 and turn into a 5 wave. But this is where we need to do our dynamic analysis. As things move, as things change, we have an open mind, and we know that if one thing happens, then it means another. If a different thing happens, then it means something else. And that's why it's important to know all of the rules and guidelines that Elliott has given us. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, here we have our second slide, and what we have is a horizontal double 3. And if we look at it, we can start to work out what's going on here. Here we have 5 waves coming down, 3 waves going up, 5 waves coming down. This is a zigzag, guys. We learned that earlier. Then we have our X, which is 3 waves. Can't be 5, remember. And then we have another 3 waves coming down. So it can't be a zigzag. We have 3 waves going up. So we've 3, 3. What are we going to get next? 5. So what do we have? We have a zigzag, an X wave, which in this case is also a zigzag, and then we have an A, B, C corrective wave. And we can label them in 2 different ways. We can label them zigzag A, B, C, and we'll change the color of that. And then we can label this A, B, C. So we can see we have a zigzag and we have a flat connected by another zigzag. So if we put in that and that, just to divide it up, we can see that we've got W, X, Y. So we can see how we took our initial complex structure and we've simplified it. So we have a 3, a connecting 3, and another 3, which gives us double. And if we had another X here and a triangle, for example, we would have a triple. Alright, let's have a look at the next slide. Okay, so here we have one that I haven't labelled. And if you were presented with this, how would you go about labelling it? Well, our first move there is an ABC zigzag. We can see that. Let's draw it this way first. We've got an ABC down, and then we've got an ABC up, as we would expect. 3 waves up, 3 waves down. So what do we know starts with 3 waves down and then has a 3 wave, 3, 3? What should we expect next? Would be a 5, because obviously it's a flat. So there's our flat A, B, C. After that we have X, And then with this strange looking setup, which seems to be a zigzag, a 3, followed by a zigzag, a 3, followed by a zigzag, a 3. See where we're going here, guys? Followed by another zigzag, followed by another zigzag. And if we put in a couple of structure lines, as I like to call them, we can see we've got a triangle. Okay, that's lovely. So what do we have? We have same setup as we had before. We've got a flat, A, B, C flat. We've got a zigzag for our X, and we've got a triangle. So that's a double 3. Okay, so I've cleaned this up a little bit. Let's have a look at how we would have labelled this initially with an A, B, C, and then we have another A, B, C, and then we have our triangle. So once this thing's completed, for simplicity's sake, we would label it like this. Our first corrective wave, our flat, is labelled W, our connecting wave is labelled X, and our triangle is labelled Y, so that we know we've got a double 3. Okay, so let's have a look at another complex corrective structure. So here we have what's known as a double zigzag. Now I didn't mention these when we were looking at zigzags, basically because I didn't want to turn a simple presentation into a complicated presentation. But now that we know about double and triple 3s, we can look at our double zigzag. So here we have a 5-wave structure coming down, which in this case we can tell is a, that's right, a diagonal. Then we have a small zigzag of the same degree of magnitude as these subwaves coming down, and then we have an impulse. Now this would be called a leading diagonal, and because we have a leading diagonal here, and because we now know a little bit about alternation, basically we can now say that where we have a diagonal, once we get our connecting 3, we're going to have an impulse for the next 5 coming down. So that's our first zigzag coming down. Then we have our X wave, just as we had in our double and triple 3s, and then we have another zigzag. So where double 3s and triple 3s differ from double and triple zigzags is that the purpose behind a double 3 or a triple 3 seems to be that price is waiting for something to happen before it moves up, and there isn't any major force moving price downward. Whereas with a diagonal, the shape of a double zigzag is more of a diagonal shape. Do you remember this shape, guys? If it comes deep like that, the chances are it's a double or triple zigzag. And if it looks more like this, the chances are we've got a double or triple 3 or horizontal. And then how do we label this? Well, our zigzag would be our W, our connecting wave would be our X, and our second zigzag would be our Y. So here we have it, a zigzag, any 3 and a zigzag, and we put our horizontal lines in, we can see how it's split up. Okay folks, that will probably be enough for information for one day. So we'll end it there and pick up the story again in the next video, where we'll start to look at Elliott's guidelines. I'm Stephen Nixon. Thank you for watching.